This episode is adapted from a clinician-written article on Mentalyc and brought to life in audio for therapists who prefer listening on the go.
I love that. And this piece was written by Courtney Gardner, MSW, so we're really excited to feature their perspective here.
Absolutely. And just for context, if you're new to Mentalyc, it's a clinical intelligence platform that supports therapists with documentation and those deeper clinical reflections.
Which is so needed. It gets me thinking. You know that feeling you get maybe a few sessions in where the air in the room just shifts? Like the client leans back, takes a real breath for the first time, and you just know something has clicked into place. The real work can start.
Oh, I live for that feeling. It's that unspoken moment where you both sense, okay, we can do this together. It's the foundation of everything, isn't it?
It is. And it's funny, we talk so much about theories and interventions, and they're all critical, but none of them land if that connection isn't there. It really is the supreme ingredient, the active ingredient in the medicine of therapy.
The active ingredient. I love that. It's so true. I remember early in my career, I was so focused on having the right technique. I'd be mentally flipping through my grad school textbooks mid-session, trying to find the perfect CBT worksheet or psychodynamic interpretation.
Oh my gosh, 100%. Were you also terrified of silence? I used to think every second of silence was a personal failure on my part. Like, quick, say something smart. Fill the space.
Yes, exactly. And it took me a while and probably a few humbling sessions to realize that my anxiety to perform was actually blocking the connection. The client could feel I was in my head, not with them. The real shift happened when I started focusing less on what I was going to do and more on how I was going to be in that room.
That is the whole journey, isn't it? Moving from human doing to human being, right there in the chair opposite our client. And it all starts with trust, which sounds so simple, but it's this huge, complex, delicate thing we're building, sometimes from scratch.
It's incredibly delicate. And it's not just about saying, this is a confidential space. It's in the micro interactions. It's starting sessions on time. It's remembering a small detail they shared last week about their dog or a project at work. It's that consistency that says, I am reliable. You are safe here.
Totally. That reliability piece is huge. It's the container. And being transparent, too. I think sometimes we're afraid to be human, to say, that's a great question. Let me think about that for a moment, instead of having a perfect, immediate answer. I had a client once who was really testing the boundaries early on, calling between sessions, asking for favors that were outside the frame, and my first instinct was panic. Oh no, I'm losing control of the process.
A classic and terrifying moment. What did you do?
Well, after my own little moment of counter-transition panic, I realized this wasn't about them trying to be difficult. It was about them testing the container. They were asking, are you sturdy? Can you hold this? Will you collapse or get angry if I push? So in our next session, I gently but firmly reestablished the boundary. I said something like, I really want to support you, and the way I can do that most effectively is within our 50-minute sessions each week. That time is 100% for you.
And how did they react?
There was this long pause, and then relief. You could see it on their face. It was the exact opposite of what I feared. Holding that boundary didn't create distance. It created safety. They knew the rules. They knew I was a sturdy, reliable presence, and our alliance deepened almost overnight. It was a huge lesson for me. Trust isn't built on being permissive. It's built on being dependable.
That's such a powerful story. It's so true. The boundaries aren't for us. They're for them. They create the predictable, safe space where the client can finally fall apart a little, knowing the floor will hold them. And that ties so deeply into the next piece, which is empathy.
Yes, and not just sympathy, right? Not the, oh, that sounds so hard, which can sometimes feel a little condescending, a little distant.
Exactly. It's not feeling for them. It's that attempt to feel with them. It's climbing into that hole with them for a moment, not to fix it, but just to say, wow, it's dark in here. I'm with you. That's so much more powerful than shouting down advice from the top of the hole.
Shouting down advice from the top of the hole. And I'm going to remember that one. It's so visual and so accurate. We're trained to be fixers, problem solvers. It's a constant practice to just sit, to be present, to use those reflective statements that can feel so clunky in grad school, but are pure gold in the room. It sounds like you're feeling incredibly alone in this.
Yes, or I can understand why that would make you feel so angry. You're not agreeing with the behavior, you're validating the emotion underneath it. You're lending them your nervous system for a moment to help them regulate. The nonverbals are huge here too. The open posture, making eye contact, maybe even mirroring their pace of speech a little. It all communicates, I see you, I hear you, you make sense.
That's something I've become much more aware of. Am I leaning in? Am I nodding? Or am I unconsciously leaning back, creating distance because what they're sharing is difficult to hear? It's so easy to do without realizing it. I've actually found it helpful to reflect on this after the session.
Oh, how so? Through your own notes?
Yeah, partly. And this is actually where I've started using a tool within Mentalyc called Genie. After my session, when I'm processing my notes, it can give me these little insights. It doesn't store recordings or anything like that, but it reflects on the session dynamics. So I might get a reflection that says something like, you used a high number of open-ended questions this session, which likely deepened the client's self-exploration. Or on the flip side, it might notice that I talked more than the client, which is a flag for me to ask myself, was I getting anxious? Was I trying to fill the space again?
Wow. That's like having a little supervisor in your pocket, just for your own reflection. It's not telling you what to do, but it's holding up a mirror to your own process. I can see how that would be incredibly valuable for honing that empathic attunement.
It really is. It helps me catch my own patterns. Am I consistently reflecting their emotional language, or am I intellectualizing? Am I asking questions that start with what and how, or am I asking leading, closed-ended questions? It's been a game changer for my own self-awareness, which in turn, I hope, makes me a better therapist and strengthens that alliance.
That makes perfect sense, because that self-awareness is the bridge to effective communication. If we don't know what we're bringing into the room, we can't communicate clearly. We can't listen actively if we're distracted by our own internal noise.
Right. Active listening. Another one of those things that sounds so basic, but the mastery of it is lifelong. It's not just being quiet while the other person talks. It's listening for the music under the words, the hesitation before they mention their father, the way their voice gets a little smaller when they talk about work, the metaphors they use over and over.
The music under the words, that's beautiful. And then paraphrasing back what you heard, not like a parrot, but to show you've digested it. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it feels like you're caught between wanting to protect your family and needing to protect yourself. Is that right? That single question can unlock so much. It gives them a chance to correct you, to clarify, and to feel deeply, profoundly heard.
And it slows everything down. In a world that moves so fast, the therapy room can be this one place where you're allowed to be slow, to be messy, to not have the answer. Checking in regularly. How is this landing for you? Or does that feel true? Is such a simple act of collaboration. It turns it from a monologue into a dialogue.
Quick pause here. If this part of the work feels familiar, that constant effort to stay attuned and reflective, Mentalyc can help. Its AI-powered tools like the Genie we were just talking about support your documentation and your clinical judgment all while staying fully HIPAA and SOC2 compliant. You can explore it for yourself at Mentalyc.com.
Speaking of that attunement, it also prepares us for the moments when things, well, when they don't go so smoothly. The ruptures, the resistance.
Yes, the hard stuff. The moments we all dread, but that are also, weirdly, where so much of the growth happens. When a client starts showing up late or gets quiet or makes a sarcastic comment, the instinct is to ignore it, to smooth it over. But the real therapy is turning toward it.
Turning toward it is so scary, though. My heart pounds just thinking about saying that.
Mine too, still, after all these years. But I've learned that what feels like resistance is often just a defense. It's a communication, however painful. And if we can approach it with curiosity instead of judgment, it can open a door. Maybe I said something last week that landed wrong. Maybe we're getting close to something really tender and they're scared. It's almost always about the relationship in that moment.
That brings up transference and counter-transference, too. The client starts seeing you as their critical parent, and suddenly you find yourself feeling defensive or wanting to prove them wrong. Or you start feeling this intense urge to rescue a client because they remind you of your younger sibling. It's so easy to get swept up in that.
Oh, completely. And that's our work to do. That's why our own self-reflection, our own therapy, our own supervision is non-negotiable. We have to be able to catch ourselves and ask, is this mine or is this theirs? What is being activated in me right now and why? If we don't, we risk reenacting a painful dynamic for the client instead of offering a new reparative one.
That's the goal, right? The reparative experience. To be the person who doesn't get angry when they express their anger. To be the one who doesn't abandon them when they get needy. To show them a different way of being in a relationship. But it requires us to manage our own emotional responses so carefully.
So carefully. And to be willing to mess up and then repair it. I think that's one of the most powerful things we can model for a client. We are not perfect. We will make mistakes. I've had to say, reflecting on our last session, I realize I cut you off when you were talking about your brother. I'm so sorry. I was off base, and I'd like to go back to that if you're willing.
Wow. The power in that. To take responsibility. To apologize sincerely. That's not just repairing a rupture in the therapy. You're giving them a roadmap for how to do that in their own life, in their own relationships. You're showing them that conflict doesn't have to be the end of a connection.
Exactly. It can be a gateway to a deeper, more authentic connection. But it takes humility, and it takes courage from both people in the room. It's a partnership. We're not the expert on high. We're a collaborator, a fellow traveler for a part of their journey.
I love that frame. A collaborator. It feels so much more empowering for the client. We're working toward mutually agreed upon goals. This isn't something I'm doing to you. It's something we're doing with you.
Right. And part of that collaboration is being culturally aware, recognizing that my life experience, my values, my worldview, they aren't universal. And I need to approach every client with a deep sense of curiosity about their culture, their community, their identity.
Cultural humility over cultural competence. The idea that we can never be fully competent in another person's culture, but we can be humble, open, and willing to learn, and willing to be corrected.
Yes, and to notice our own internal reactions. If I feel a moment of discomfort or confusion, my job is to pause and reflect on that internally. What is this bringing up for me? What assumption am I making right now? It's about doing our own work so we don't put that burden on the client.
It all comes back to that self-reflection, doesn't it? Every single aspect of this work, whether it's managing counter-transference, demonstrating empathy, or practicing cultural humility, it all requires us to be constantly looking inward, to be as curious about our own process as we are about our clients.
It really does. The therapeutic relationship is this living, breathing entity. It has different forms, different needs. Sometimes it's a collaborative working alliance, very goal-oriented. Sometimes it's a reparative relationship, healing old attachment wounds. We have to be flexible enough to meet the client where they are and co-create the type of relationship that they need for their healing.
And that can change over time, even with the same client. The relationship you have in the first month might be very different from the one you have a year in. It's an evolution.
It is, and it's such a privilege to be a part of that. It can be a daunting process for sure. It requires patience, dedication, and a whole lot of practice. But the reward? Seeing a client start to internalize that trust and empathy and use it in their own lives? Seeing them make changes they never thought possible? There's nothing else like it.
Nothing at all. It makes all the hard moments, all the self-doubt, all the challenging sessions completely worth it. We get to witness transformation. And it's all built on that foundation of human connection, compassion, and our shared humanity.
So, if we were to boil it down to one practical thing a fellow clinician could take into their very next session, what would it be?
I think it would be to consciously look for one opportunity to deepen empathy. Maybe it's a moment where your instinct is to offer a solution or ask a question. Instead, just pause and try reflecting the underlying emotion. Just one simple statement like, "That sounds utterly exhausting," or "I can hear the hope in your voice when you say that," and just see what happens. See how it shifts the energy in the room, even just for a second.
I love that. It's small, it's actionable, and it's profound. It's a beautiful practice. And it's a reminder that this massive, important thing we call the therapeutic relationship is built one small, authentic moment at a time.
Exactly, one moment at a time. And of course, if you find yourself wanting support and tracking those alliance patterns and reflecting on your own side of the dynamic, that's precisely what a tool like Alliance Genie can help you with, all without storing any session recordings and keeping everything secure.